exposing the problem. In many ways, I say, Donald Trump, he rolled over that log and we saw what crawled out. I'm bringing the pesticide, is the way I look at this. Is just get the thing done. Minimal federal standards for federal elections. Single day voting on election day. Make it a national holiday. Paper ballots, government issued ID to match the voter file. And yes, English as the sole language that appears on the ballot. That too is about cohesion in this country. Same thing with respect to the mass firings of the administrative state. You've got to actually get in there and get the job done, bring the pesticide. I think once you get that deep state out of the way, once you lay those basic rules of the road, even elections that we can trust, that we can believe in.
Because even they have to follow the law.
They do.
Then we got to enforce it.
And then we got to enforce it. You gentlemen here, thank you for doing your jobs. We got your back if we're in there. Let me tell you something about local law enforcement, how we're under-leveraging local law enforcement in this country. So I told you we would end birthright citizenship for the kids of illegal migrants, right? And every president could have done this. The Constitution already says it. So the 14th Amendment, sometimes if you're going to swear an oath to the Constitution, it helps to actually read it. The 14th Amendment, it says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, that's the key words, are citizens. What does that jurisdiction piece mean? Well, the kid of a Mexican diplomat who's in this country legally, that kid does not enjoy birthright citizenship. Nobody thinks he does. Well, then the kid of a Mexican or Venezuelan illegal in this country does not automatically enjoy birthright citizenship either. So the day I take office going forward, nobody who's born in this country illegally enjoys citizenship. That's a big way we solve a lot of the mass migration problem. But the other way is take the millions who are here illegally. It's controversial to some people, but I think it's the right answer. If you're here in the country illegally, you have to be returned to your country of origin. Period. Now, they say they can't do it because ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, only has 6,000 or so actual cops or agents on the front lines. But again, read the law. The law allows ICE to give their warrant service power to gentlemen like you who are serving in this community to say, okay, if they can't get here, you can still serve those warrants in the local community. There's 1 million local law enforcement in this country who are standing by and ready to do their duty. We haven't used that. Now, what we require is a president who understands the law to instruct ICE to allow local law enforcement to be able to get that job done. So everything we need to done in this country right now, I mean, the basic rules of the road, protecting our borders, using our military, send the troops to the southern border, build the wall, this and that. Okay, that's, yeah, it doesn't get done. Even if it does get done, they build the cartel-financed tunnels. Fix the problem. As Commander-in-Chief, send the troops to the border. As Commander-in-Chief, you have ICE give local law enforcement the ability to serve those warrants, as the law already allows for. Fire 75% of those federal bureaucrats. Drive basic federal standards for federal elections. Single-day voting, election day, make it a holiday with paper ballots. We live in a 1776 moment. It's about the basic rules of the road, and I think we will unite the country around this, because none of what I'm telling you is a black idea or a white idea.
It's the law.
It's the law. It's all of us are united. Even Democrats and Republicans. They should argue about tax rates maybe, but they shouldn't be arguing about this. This is what unites us across our differences. And I think we have an opportunity to do it.
What do those troops do you sent shoot those people?
Those troops sent to the border, if they're facing outward, you've already sent the signal that you don't come in. I've been to the southern border. I'll tell you what you see there. It's not like what most of us imagine, where there's people trying to sneak in and they're chasing them down and you have to shoot them. That's not it. Our own government is facilitating them coming in. That's actually what's happening. So they're just forming neatly formed lines. They each check the same box. It says asylum, and we let them in, because that's the signal we're sending. In fact, our own Customs and Border Patrol show people who don't even know the language, there's translations for them about which box you check saying you're seeking asylum. That's what's happening. It's not like a shoot them, people trying to run over situation. That's not it at all. So I'm sending a different signal. There's a new commander-in-chief in town. We have borders. A nation without borders is not a nation. You line the military up, nobody's coming into this country. You complete the wall, nobody's coming into this country. Use aquatic barriers in the Rio Grande. They're safe, they're cheap, they're mobile. The U.S. government isn't letting Texas use them. Why? Not because they don't work, but because they do work. And this is the part you're not supposed to say out loud, but we all ought to know it. This is the intentional product of a Democratic Party's policy that's about changing the composition of the electorate, including the legal votes that are cast.
They're buying the vote.
That's exactly what they are, and by the millions. So once you see that, you realize what you need is a president who just stands for the rule of law and says, you know what the military person is going to say? Okay, we want to come seek asylum in this country. I'm going to show you Customs and Border Patrol, and if you don't have proof of political persecution, which is 99% of them, you're going back to your country. And forced to remain in Mexico, which actually is the law of the land right now. They're just not enforcing it. Goes back to the point that the people who we elect to run the government aren't the ones actually running the government. All it takes is a commander-in-chief who's actually willing to enforce that law. You had a question, sir?
Okay, yeah. Excuse me. The technology, I see one of there, you want to continue to use fossil fuels. I don't know anybody that watches Cheryl Atkinson, but 2 years ago they had a 20-minute program on clean coal. And they're using the carbon from it to make concrete blocks. I don't know if anybody even saw it, okay? But why can't, how come we've got all this technology, but it never comes to the forefront?
Well, it's because of the regulations in this country. So there's coal plants in southern Illinois, for example, that actually, one of them, I talked to one of the people from that community, they say its byproduct is H2O, water. And yet, it's going to have to be forced to close because of the crippling regulations applying to the coal industry. Same thing with respect to the restraints on drilling and on fracking. Those didn't come from Congress. Those are regulations that just came from the executive branch that Congress never actually passed. So on my view, and on the current Supreme Court's view, that's unconstitutional. The fourth branch of government, that administrative state, that swamp, that itself is unconstitutional. So when I take office, we're rescinding any regulation that was not based on a law that Congress passed. That's what our founding fathers would say. And actually, that's what, as it relates to coal, I'm glad you brought it up, that's what the Supreme Court said last year, and probably the most important Supreme Court case of our century, maybe our lifetime. It's a case called West Virginia versus EPA. And it said a lot of the EPA's, this was just last year, very recent, a lot of the EPA's regulations of the coal industry, they said, are unconstitutional because Congress never actually passed that into the law. Well, if that's unconstitutional, most of our federal regulations are unconstitutional. I've got something going for me that even Trump didn't have going for him, which is a great Supreme Court. And I give him credit for giving that to us. But now it requires a president who understands and knows how to use that in our favor. If I'm going to swear an oath to the Constitution, we got to keep it. And the positive side of this is, I said this at the beginning, that if my kids are in high school before we get this right, I don't think we have a country left. How old are you, young man? You're 15. I would say by the time you're 20 years old, what's going to happen? So you have about $200,000 of debt on your shoulders that you didn't sign up for. It's called our national debt. If the interest payments on our national debt become the largest line item in our federal budget, we're done. Because then we're in quicksand. And that's about 5 years from now. So that's one side. But the flip side of it is, this is also our opportunity. I said we live in a 1776 moment. Imagine what it would have been like to be alive in the spring of 1776. It's a special time. There's something in the water back then. I talk about Thomas Jefferson inventing the swivel chair. The other signers of the Declaration of Independence. You got a guy like Benjamin Franklin, invented the bifocal spectacle. Actually, a remedy to the common cold. The lightning rod, first one of them, Benjamin Franklin. Robert Livingston was the ambassador to France. He was a co-signer of that document. He actually invented part of the steamship while he was, as a hobby, while he was in France. I mean, this is the founding spirit we need to revive, that we're the pioneers, we're the explorers, the unafraid, those who could not be stopped. We have a Supreme Court standing at the ready to stand beside a president who understands the Constitution, as long as you have a U.S. president who's actually willing to have a spine to do the right thing. Will I get challenged for it? Of course we will. We'll take it to the Supreme Court and win. This is how we revive what our entire country was founded on. And so I think it falls on our shoulders to do this. I refuse to be the generation, all of us here, that watches by and squanders what our founding fathers gave us 250 years ago. And I worry, if I wasn't in this race, naturally the thing I'd be doing is I'd be voting for Donald Trump too. It's the closest thing we've had to that. But we're in the middle of a war right now for the continued existence of our country. It's a war between those who love the United States of America and a fringe minority who hates this country and what we stand for. Between the managerial class, the deep state, and the everyday citizen. I think right now we need a commander-in-chief, a general to lead us to victory who has not yet been wounded in that war. Somebody with fresh legs to lead us forward to the next generation. And I've honored Trump and his legacy more than, and I'm saying this speaking, if most of you were like me, maybe that'd be the direction you would be going 6 months ago too. I said if they remove his name off the ballot in Maine or Colorado, I'm off too. That's how we stand against election interference in this country. But we cannot fall for the trick, the trap they've laid for us. And so I'm asking you to do the right thing for our country, even if it's a little different than what you were thinking a few months ago. Open your eyes. You saw what they did last time around. Man-made pandemic to attack rigged election. This time they will stop at nothing. And I believe I'm the person who will be able to reach the next generation. You're going to college, you can't vote yet. But I'm glad and proud of you for being here. But going to college campuses across this country, across this state, I think we're going to win the Iowa caucus because many of our supporters have never been to a caucus before. We're bringing them in for the same reason we're going to win the general election in a landslide. And a landslide minus some shenanigans is still a win, which is what we need to heal this country. And so if you all do your part, that's what I'm asking you for. 30 minutes of your time on January 15th. A little bit more than that, which is maybe an hour of your time each of the next 2 weeks. To tell 10 people who couldn't be here today about what we talked about this morning. Bring them too. Every one of your votes at that Iowa caucus, it's like the equivalent of 1 million people, actually, and the impact that it has on selecting the next president. That's really the donation that I'm asking you for.
Well,
of your time.
in every movement,
Yes.
you need a leader that says, stand up, follow me, and jumps out of the trench, and it's up to us to follow. And I think you're that leader, and that's why I'm going to caucus for you. So,
It means a lot to me. Thank you. And I know you've seen me a couple times now in the last couple of weeks. I appreciate that, sir. And if you all do your part, I will just tell you this. My family and I, my wife's a hero. She's saving lives on a daily basis, but she's here doing this with me because this is about the life of our country. We will do ours to make sure, not in some fake politician way, but in a true way, make sure that our country's best days are actually still ahead of us. That we don't have to be this nation in decline anymore. We don't have to be at the end of the ancient Roman Empire. What's your name, man? Like Isaac, we're really, I see a country that's a little young, actually. On a good day, that's what I want to see. Going through all of our version of our adolescence. Figuring out who we're going to be when we grow up. I think that's what our founding fathers would see in us if they were alive today. We're 250 years in. I think we've got 250 years and then some yet to go if we get this right. So this is about honoring what they set into motion. From Livingston to Jefferson to George Washington. They did the hard work. All we have to do is keep alive the principles that they put down on two documents, the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to stand for what they gave us. And I think if we fail to do it now, I worry we don't have a country left. But if we do step up this year, I also believe that our best days can actually still be ahead of us. Yes.
But what can we do about the election? I mean, we saw what happened 4 years
I'm
ago.
going to tell you, it's not. I would love to tell you it's going to be honky dory, and it's morning in America. It's not. This cannot be a 50.1 election. It has to be a Reagan 1980 style landslide, minus some shenanigans.
A lot of shenanigans.
Minus a lot of shenanigans, still needs to be a decisive victory. And I think I'm the only person in this race that can deliver that, because we're bringing young people, first generation Americans, people from the inner city of Chicago. When I went there, they thought they were going to be up against me. It was only about 100 of them, but there's still 100 people that will be on our side. Most of them will by the time we get to our election. Because they also believe in securing our own border, because they're turning their own high school into an encampment for migrants. And they don't want to send $200 billion of our own money while they're living in squalor to Ukraine. So this is a multi-ethnic, working class coalition. Frankly, I'll tell you something. You guys already may know this about me. I mean, I'm Hindu, which is different than the traditional faith background of people who run for U.S. president. Now, what I can tell you is we share the same values in common. I went to St. Xavier High School in Cincinnati, read the Ten Commandments for the first time when I was in high school, and it didn't feel like I was reading them for the first time. My core faith is there's one true God. He puts us here for a purpose. It's our duty to realize that purpose. And we're all equal because we're equal in the eyes of God. God resides in each of us. As a side note, read the Ten Commandments. It's almost unfashionable to talk about them these days. There's one true God.
Don't do it in high school.
I mean, I think it'd be great if they did in my high school, and I was better off for it. Don't take his name in vain. Observe the Sabbath. Honor your parents. Don't lie. Don't cheat. Don't steal. Don't commit adultery. Don't covet. Didn't feel to me like I was reading these values for the first time. But I brought that up in the context of your question because we want people of many faith backgrounds to still stand for the same values the country was founded on. They are Judeo-Christian values, but most people in this country share those values in common if we can have a president who stands for our national character, regardless of their skin color and regardless of whether they voted for a Democrat 30 years ago too. So this has to be that kind of election. Once I get that right, you have my word, we'll get to single-day voting. Election day, national holiday with paper ballots and government-issued ID. And I also stand for English as the national language of the United States. That means it's the only language that appears on the ballot. This is how we unite this country. People believe that the way you unite the country is by showing up in the middle and compromising. Hold hands, sing Kumbaya, unite the country. That's fake. That's not real. The way we will unite this country, the way I'm volunteering to lead us to unite this country, and I will, is by standing for the shared values. Dare I say it, radical values that set our country in motion. The idea that you get to worship freely, you get to speak your mind freely, as long as I get to in return. Those are radical ideas. In most of human history, it was done the other way. But that's what makes America great. That is what makes America itself, and young people in particular, I promise you. What's your name?
Robin?
Robin, I promise you, I'm 38. I'm the youngest person ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican, and I think it's going to take someone like me to do this. The next generation is lost, but they're not against us. They're hungry for purpose and meaning and direction. We're already doing it in this campaign as the next president. We will give them that direction that they're starved for. They veer left because the left gives them a vision. Race, gender, sexuality, climate. Where are we talking about what we care about? Individual, family, nation, God. We haven't been doing that as conservatives. That is my duty, my responsibility. My faith teaches me we have to use our God-given gifts for what's right. And so that's why I'm in this. This country has allowed us to live an American dream we never imagined possible. I'm a businessman, I'm not a politician. We've achieved success. I think they're asking me to go to the next stop. Where are we going next? Anybody know? Waverly. I think Waverly's next, yeah. If you guys want to join us, you're welcome. But I'll just ask you in parting.
Gutenberg, Clayton County.
Okay, Waverly's later.
You're only about 20 minutes away.
About 20 minutes away, so if anyone want to join us, we'd love to have you. But
Some good folks down there.
yeah, we don't want to keep them waiting. Good people in this part of the state, people may not be visiting. But
Joe Zurcher, who's down there, is going to be doing his job.
what's that?
Joe Zurcher, he's the head of them down there.
Okay, I'll keep an eye for him. I'll tell you is that's what I'll leave it at. If you do your part,
Yep.
we're going to do ours. January 15th, I think I'm the sole person in this race that can actually stand for our Constitution. Actually, you know, I mean, actually make it happen, right? I'm not wounded in that war.
Right.
And I think it's going to take a general who is wounded.
I think, I wore my Trump hat purposely because I think it's more of a feeling. You know, I saw your latest commercial. I was talking with the young lady over there that I feel Trump built the foundation, and you're right, he has kind of ruined it. So he's already got a target on the back. But you're the one that's going to extend that foundation, build the walls and
We will take that forward and we will honor him at every step of the way as he deserves for what he did for this country. He did the right thing and he's a patriot. But our movement can't end with him. It's bigger than any of us. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than Trump. It's bigger than George Washington. It belongs to we the people. And we will take our America First movement to the next level. You have no word about that. Thank you guys for coming out this morning. I appreciate it. God bless you and our country.
How do you, as president, get a regulatory state? How do we get all these regulations before Congress to actually get? Because I don't see how you'd have the power.
Shut it down is the answer. Article 2 of the Constitution. There's one executive branch. So I can't tell you what Congress is going to do, but I can tell you what I'm going to do. All of that came from the executive branch. All of it can be taken by the person
So
who
how do
laid
we end
it.
that? How do we get rid of the executive order so that, or limit it back to what it's supposed to be?
So I said this before you walked in, actually, but it's the right question. We have a Supreme Court now that agrees with me 6-3 on everything I've said.
Yeah.
So
I'm
we'll,
with you. I am.
we'll shut down the FBI, to the ATF, to the CDC, to the U.S. Department of Education. We'll rescind every regulation that Congress never actually passed. It never came from Congress. If I'm swearing an oath to the Constitution, that's how I keep it. We'll fire about 75% of the number of federal bureaucrats by the end of the first term, 50% in the first month. This is what we learned from Trump. You strike the swamp strikes back, you got to move fast.
We've seen that.
But we only saw it partially, actually.
I know.
And so now will they sue us? Yes, we take it to the Supreme Court and we win. Then the next president who comes after me won't have his hands tied in the same way. That's what I say. America First is bigger than Trump and it's bigger than me. It's about how we take our movement to the next level. That's what the next president needs to do. If you have that, our country's best days, I'm confident, are ahead of us. But if we fail to do it now, I think that we may be at risk of not having a country left. So thank you for coming out.
Is the EPA included in that alphabet agency?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Yes, it is.
Number one.
No, I mean, well, number one's hard to argue with. There's a lot of contenders: Department of Education, FBI, EPA, ATF, but all of them are species of the same thing. It's an unconstitutional violation. You need a president who will get there, not with the chisel. We're bringing a chainsaw. That's what we're doing. So, thank you. January 15th. If I win the Iowa caucus, I'm your next president. If I'm your next president, we get the things done we said we're going to get done. So you do your part. You bring 10 people with you. We got our best days ahead. Thank you, guys. Thank you.